This is Bigger Questions with your host, Robert Martin.
Welcome to Bigger Questions, recorded live in Melbourne CBD. Today's big question: is religion for fools? Today we meet a man who has written a book called Religion Is for Fools. Bill Medley was a religious skeptic who investigated the 5 major world religions. He attempted to see what can be known, if anything, about God. And today we hear about his spiritual quest. Please welcome Bill Medley. Well, Bill, welcome to Bigger Questions. It's great that you can join us here today.
Thank you.
Now, just to clarify, you're not the same Bill Medley who was one of the Righteous Brothers, are you?
Well, actually, I am the same guy.
Okay, right.
Just
yes.
that I'd sound a little different when I'm speaking than when I'm singing.
So how do you...
Now I've had the time of my life, and I never felt like this before. You can stop me anytime.
I will. So, I was actually going to join in. I was thinking maybe we should do a duet. I could sing the Jennifer Warnes part. Do you think?
I don't know.
Well, maybe
we could do a ventriloquist act and I'll be the dummy. It's all right.
Sure. No, but so you do have a background in entertainment, though, Bill?
Sure, yeah.
Yep.
I did comedy for 15 years, stand-up comedy, did a bit of acting and all those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you even spent some time in Hollywood where you were confused with the other Bill Medley at times?
Yeah, well, the other Bill Medley, I wasn't worried about him when I went to the States because he got lost in his 60s with his Righteous Brothers. They hadn't been heard of for a long time. But when I went there in 1988 and 1989, he all of a sudden had this worldwide #1 hit with the Dirty Dancing theme song. And so, yeah, it became, I had to, there's cheap imitators out there. There's more than one Bill Medley. Yeah.
Okay, right. So you pick up any work as a result? They thought that you're a cheap Bill Medley.
No. I in actual fact, I didn't get that confused so much with Bill Medley, but some people thought I looked like Roman Polanski, which I thought was pretty cool until I found out that he was a child molester, and then so they go, it's not me. I mean, it's him. I'm not him. You know. So that was the only confusion.
Sure. So that time in Hollywood was that the time of your life?
Now we are doing the ventriloquist act with the dummy over here, but no, it was in some ways. It was a time of lots of excitement, searching, all kinds of things. Yeah.
We'll get to talk a bit more about your search in just a moment, but
Sure.
we do try to have a bit of fun. And today we're talking with Bill Medley about religion being for fools. So, Bill, in today's quiz, I thought we'd test you on how much you know about fools. So there's 2 questions, both multiple choice. The word fool originated in the 13th century. It is derived from the Latin meaning follis. So what does follis mean? Is it A, bellows, a leather bag, B, intelligent but misunderstood, C, a leafy branch, or D, hot air? So what is the meaning of follis?
It has to be the leafy branch, I think.
The leafy branch?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be actually, because it's not. The actual answer is actually A, which is bellows or a leather bag, because follis can be used to describe a windbag or an empty-headed person, which describes a fool. Don't you think?
Look, you're getting personal here.
Okay. Question 2. The website The Motley Fool, found at fool.com.au, provides information on what? Is it A, comedy, B, religion, C, the stock market, or D, gambling? This is the website The Motley Fool, fool.com.au.
Well, I'd say that the Motley Fool would have to be comedy.
Comedy. Just so that you don't fail, let's not comedy. Let's move more towards the centre, perhaps. Yeah.
Okay.
You can do it.
So we got gambling left, religion.
Yeah, if we take those 2 out, then we're left with...
I was going to ask if I could have 3 more tries.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
The stock market. Yeah.
A stock market.
Yes,
of
right.
course.
It's the stock market.
I'm trying to think of the Motley Crew. You know.
Yeah. Well, it was the Motley Fool is taken from
Okay.
Shakespeare's comedy As You Like It. Anyway, so Bill, now how much do you know about Fool's Quiz? You nearly got one right. So give Bill a big round of applause. So,
Is this the full test? Like I got none right.
yeah. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe you're not a fool. Perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's part of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Bill. So you grew up in a completely non-religious environment. So did you consider religion to be something for fools? Perhaps fool.com.au should be appropriate for the church.
For sure. I did think that because I figured that how can we know anything about who God is, or if there's a God, or all these different religions seeking to reach up to try and find out who God is, but really they're limited by their own human capacity, intellect, spiritual experience, whatever it is. And I figured unless God comes down in person and tells us, then we are just guessing, and therefore it's pretty foolish to go around dedicating your life to a religion if you're really just guessing. So, yeah, I used to think religion is for fools, for sure.
Yeah. But then you also even used religion as in your routines at times. It was a satire on religion.
I did, but it was, kind of politically incorrect to make fun of Buddhists, and no one's silly enough to make fun of Muslims. So Christianity was always the obvious one. So yeah, I did. In fact, I can remember unbelieving bosses of venues telling me, you better tone that down a bit, in case you offend any religious people out there. So yeah.
So, but you didn't think much about religion apart from perhaps trying how to make a joke from it?
No, well, actually, from a young age, I always thought one day that I would investigate the major religions of the world, just so I could say I've been there and done that, so that I had something to say when those people knock on the door and and tell you if you don't become a Jehovah's Witness you'll get burned out in Armageddon or something. And
right.
I wanted something more intelligent to say than just, well, if I've got to live with nothing but Jehovah's Witnesses, I'd rather just die, thanks. But I wanted to be able to say I'd been there and done that.
Yeah. So
It wasn't really a quest to join an organised religion or anything, but I didn't actually do it.
You thought it was a nice idea?
I thought it was a good idea when I was, I was a younger guy, yeah.
Yeah. Now, so you're a pretty non-religious person, worked in the entertainment industry. So what were you searching for?
I thought this life is basically all there is, so I got to try and get as much as I can out of it, achieve as much as I can. So I pursued wholeheartedly the comedy, the acting, and so on. And I thought if I get that big time, then I've found the meaning of life and the satisfaction or whatever it is I was shooting for. That'll be it.
You couldn't get no satisfaction though.
Yeah. No.
Because you had a song in the 80s about Mick Jagger as well. Do you want to tell us a bit about what happened with that?
Yeah, it didn't exactly go gold. It went lead. It was a single I had out on Mushroom Records. Got played a lot in the discos in the 80s, but that was before I had a record deal, so the timing was totally hopeless and, it didn't exactly take off. It won Best New Comedy Song, 1985, and Pater Awards before.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
So you went to Hollywood as well to try to pursue this acting and comedy career.
For sure.
Dreams of riches and fame, perhaps?
Yeah, well, everything seemed to always be just slipping through my fingers, like that Hard Luck story with the single. And, I was always pursuing, I'd done in national television, I'd done a few bit parts in movies, about 60 TV commercials, but I was always the bit part guy or the support act. I supported some international acts, James Taylor and Monkeys and people like this. So
your favourite Oscar was Best Supporting Actor? Is that the one that you were looking for?
I wouldn't have been complaining about that. That would have been fine. But so when you're not getting anywhere, as you do, you go straight to Hollywood, and that's where I thought I'll pursue things over there. Again, times where I thought it was going to get the breakthrough. It always just seemed to be slipping through my fingers. But there was one time in particular that really made me start to rethink things. And that was, I had this interview. You're always trying to get auditions and interviews. And I got an interview with this producer, and she looked at all my videotapes and said, look, this is pretty good. I don't know why you haven't been working, so I'm going to get you into a TV series, first a pilot, and really get you working. So I thought, well, this is great. Went back, talked to my agent, and the agent goes, well, this producer's impressed with you. And I said, yeah. She sounded like she was really impressed. And no, this is one of the biggest producers in Hollywood. If she says you're in, you're in. And so right then I started thinking, this is it. I started spending the money in my head. I can't slip through my fingers this time, because this time, not only once I get a profile on a TV series, I'll have my live show ready, I'll have my recordings ready. This will be it. And now, little did I know that about a week later, this same producer got some big gig way over in New York, left that week and forgot the little guy from Australia that he'd made his promises to that way. But the point of this story is that I actually thought, this time I'm really going to make it. And it just fleetingly went through my head, and what am I going to do then? Like, when I've got everything I want, is that it? So what then? And even though I didn't actually get there to the goal, I actually thought I did. And even then it was a bit of not a depressing thought, but just there's still something missing. And so I think I was a little bit more prepared than just the intellectual exercise when I came back to Australia, got my old gig back. I used to work at Rembrandt's restaurant out in Wantirna South. I was making a living out of just one gig a week. I had time all through the week, so I started my investigation that when I was a teenager I thought one day I'll do, that is to read through all the major world religions and their texts. So
what did you read?
I read through the Bible, of course. I also read through the Buddhist scriptures, the Hindu scriptures, the Quran. So I was covering the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament of the Bible. So I was covering the 5 major world religions because they're the main influence for all religion throughout the world, or most religions throughout the world. So that's where I got started. So
how was that experience, reading through all these different religious documents?
Well, it was really good when the Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on the door. I could tell them I've been there and done that. But it was interesting because when you read the Buddhist scriptures and you can go, well, that seems interesting. I could agree with that, or I don't agree with that. But it wasn't, those texts weren't really answering the question of, yeah, but how do you know whether this is from God or not? So in one sense it was interesting with some of the texts, but yeah, there was more to it than that.
Now it's common to think that all religions are the same.
Yeah.
Was that your assessment?
The people who say all religions are the same are people who just have never bothered to actually read the texts of the religions. I know it's a common thought, but there's no God in Buddhism. So you've got God versus no God. Now, if you reckon those two are the same, God and no God, what could be different? You might as well throw atheists into the mix and say they're the same as religious people too. You got resurrection versus reincarnation. In other words, you're coming back into this life, or you're not coming back into this life as someone else. They're just irreconcilable. Even the Dalai Lama has said that you can't have resurrection. And I think the Dalai Lama's quote was that you trying to make resurrection and reincarnation the same as like trying to put a sheep's head on a yak's body. So he's got a bit of humour himself. But there is one actual doctrine that all the major world religions do have, interestingly enough, and that is they all have the concept of hell.
Okay.
Which, I don't know, the people who say all religions are the same don't seem to get as excited about that for some reason. But they do all have the same concept that if you do something wrong, there's a price to pay. Even if you get reincarnated, you've got to spend some time in hell as well, even for those religions. They all have that concept.
So then how do you make a decision about which one's true?
Well, as I said, to me, religion is for fools, because unless God comes down in person and tells you, then we're just guessing. We're just making it up. We're foolish to think from our own selves we could figure out who God is or what religion is true. And as I went through these 5 major religions, that the one thing that really stood out is that there's only one founder or leader of any major world religion who actually claimed to be God come down. And that was Jesus, who claimed to be the eternal Son of God. That shifted my whole thinking, because now I've at least got someone who's at least saying they're that source of someone who's come down. And
You just got to work out whether or not you can believe that person now.
well, that was the question I had, and so here's me thinking I made this up, but I thought, hang on, he can't just be some great religious teacher or prophet. If he's claiming to be God, either that's a true statement or he's telling the biggest lie ever, because he's calling on people to follow him, even give their lives for him, and or he's the biggest lunatic who ever lived. So we had the Lord Liar Lunatic that I thought I made up until I found out that there were, long before me, even long before C.S. Lewis, that used that argument. And I think in some senses it's actually Jesus' argument when he says to his disciples, yeah, but who do you say that I am?
As part of Bigger Questions, we reflect on the Bible, and we're about to look at a part of the Bible which was particularly persuasive for you in your journey, Bill. The part of the Bible we're looking at comes from the first letter of John. Now, John wrote one of the biographies of Jesus' life, the Gospel of John, and he also wrote 3 shorter letters. Now, we're looking at the first chapter of one of those letters called 1 John, where he writes, "That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life." So, Bill, how is this helpful in your spiritual quest?
It's one of the central things as I looked. I'd always heard that the Bible was something that had been handed down, and even though the people might be sincere writing it down, there's so many centuries have gone by, and the guys writing it down were just trying their best to convey the story, or they could have just deliberately, changed it around, or they're just mistaken.
Yeah.
But when I looked at that text, that really jumped out at me. That hang on a minute, wipe out any sincere mistaken issue. That's not on the table anymore. Because what John is saying is that I was there. I didn't just see him, I was so close I touched him. I lived with him, I walked with him. So then here we're adding this whole thing. We've got Jesus' claim to be God. It's no longer just an option to dismiss him as a great teacher. He's either it's true or it's not true. And same with these eyewitnesses like John, who are saying, I was there. So, yeah, of course the possibility is that John is deliberately fabricating, but that's exactly what he would have to do. He can't be just some guy who's sincerely mistaken. If he lived so much close to him that he was there, touched him.
Which says we've heard, we've seen with our eyes, we've looked with our hands and touched.
Yeah.
So that's actually a sort of sense as though we've come on,
intimacy.
give him a slap across the back, and you're shaking his hand and giving him a high five.
Yeah, he's right there with him, living with him, and of course he travelled with him for 3 years.
And so he says this concerning the word of life. So this is the person Jesus?
Jesus is referred to the Word, and that is God's communication. God comes down in person, ultimately and finally and fully in the person of His Son. That's what that's saying. Yeah.
And what it says in the second verse there of 1 John, that the life appeared, we have seen it and testify to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and has appeared to us. So that's that idea you're talking about, that
Absolutely.
God has actually come and revealed himself, and these people have seen it and now write about it.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was really important for you.
Well, that was the crucial thing in terms of we're fools if we're looking up, firing into the dark on what we think about God based on our opinions or our spiritual experience or whatever. But God has to actually come down in person, and that was the real point of the investigation. If Jesus is telling the truth, I've actually got the answer to God actually coming down in person.
So did that surprise you? When you said, this is my test, I'm going to say, I want God to actually reveal himself, and then you see this guy actually saying, this is what's actually happened, or the claim about Jesus. Did that surprise you?
In some senses it did, but because I just sort of never thought of myself as actually finding an answer to that question. When you start talking about if God's come down, oh yeah, right, sort of thing. So in a sense it was a shock, but on the other hand, it made a whole lot of sense of a whole lot of things that didn't fit without God and without God revealing himself. So it made sense of a lot of things, even though it was surprising.
And I suppose then this idea that they've seen something remarkable and then tried to share it with others, even yourself, makes sense of the third verse there, doesn't it? We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us, and our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. So in the sense that your experience of accepting this word of life, or this Jesus, and then, actually accepting it's true, because that's the reason that they wrote the thing in the first place.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
One of the primary things for me was that this testimony is not just, is Jesus telling the truth or not, but what evidence is there for that? If the Bible had never been written, you could still build up the evidence of Jesus walking this earth, dying on a cross under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. All these things are written outside the Bible.
Yeah.
And many of them in the first century, again, by historians who were there in that century, even if the Bible had never been written. So you're dealing with a real historical figure, and the Bible obviously has far more information about him and his life and teaching.
Yes, well, that's why John says he writes it, so that you can know more about him.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of why he's writing.
For sure.
Yeah.
The real issue comes down to, is this a fabrication? Well, the eyewitness testimony is, I think it's crucial to note that with Jesus, there is eyewitness testimony evidence that does not exist anywhere else in history. There's something absolutely unprecedented about the evidence of this eyewitness testimony, and that is that these guys, like John, were willing to put their lives on the line. 11 out of the 12 disciples were martyred for the faith. They were willing to go to their deaths to say they'd seen this happen. Now, of course, plenty of people die for religious causes. We see that, unfortunately, today, with guys blowing themselves up and so on. But the reason I said there's no precedent in the history of the world is because, yes, people will die for something they believe in, but no one dies for something they don't believe in.
Or something they know is false.
That's what I mean. That they know is false. That's what I mean by that, is that if Jesus was just a lie, you've got the problem of all these other eyewitnesses who are willing to testify, even to the point of death, to say, like they're going to get crucified too. You can see them getting nailed up to crosses going, we'll really have everyone fooled now, fellas.
Right.
Once we're dead, eh? Yeah.
Right.
It's just, there's no precedent in the history of the world for that kind of eyewitness testimony.
So, Bill, you decided, that the Christian message was true. So how did that decision affect your life? It came as a bit of surprise to some of your friends and family?
It did. It definitely come as a surprise. There's still people from my old life. I've encountered, even in the last month, someone that I was in a band with 35 years ago was in such disbelief his mouth dropped for about 20 minutes before he could speak. And he gets on the phone ringing other guys who are in the band going, "You're never going to believe this." He rings some guy in Sydney and goes, "Now you better not be sitting on the edge of the Sydney Harbour Bridge or anything, because you're going to fall off when you hear this." And I still have people, now I'm a pastor of the Frankston Presbyterian Church, I still have people coming by to look at the sign on the front of the church to see, is this just one of his jokes? Is this for real, But I think the primary thing that really changed was the message itself. This world has been broken. There's something gone horribly wrong, and it comes from humanity shaking its fist at God and saying, we don't want God ruling over us. And the mess that we see is the result. And God could obviously just done something about it, like all the other religions would say, just chuck everybody into hell. But God did something remarkable in that God sent his Son, who is the eternal God himself, so that he can take the penalty in our place on the cross, paying an eternal debt, so that forgiveness is secured, not in some cheap way where God overlooks evil and goes, don't worry about it, I'll let you into heaven, it's all right. Instead, the justice is fully paid, and the security of that forgiveness is made. And that changed my life.
How did it change your life, this forgiveness that came from Jesus?
Well, it meant, I guess, to me, that there was a meaning to life that I never thought was possible. That there is actually a plan. There is a reason why this world is in such a mess it's in. There is an actual plan for this world. I always, when I was an unbeliever, I always thought time's running out and that bit of my life is wasted. And what I discovered, that nothing was wasted. It's all a plan, and there is a plan, and it's God's plan. I just got to get in on that relationship with God, and I can only do that with Him speaking to my heart. And He did that, and suddenly everything that I thought was wasted suddenly made sense. Things that had gone wrong, somehow it worked out for good.
So in many ways, that spiritual anxiety that you felt in Hollywood about the meaning had been satisfied with the conclusion of your spiritual quest in Jesus.
Yeah, it wasn't even a spiritual thing that was missing in Hollywood so much as just the full meaning of existence. I didn't necessarily think I was going to find that God had come down.
Yeah. You were just looking for something.
I just wanted to investigate it. As I said before, I was more prepared to be open to looking at things. I mean, one of the things that has sort of struck me is, if what Jesus is saying is true, then we are not unbiased when we go to look at these great questions. Oh, will I choose a religion, or will I seek God? We think like we're unbiased jurors. But if Jesus' message is true, there's actually something in us that actually says we don't want to know God. We're actually against God, and we'll actually choose anything, even another religion, if it means I don't have to have this one thing, and that is the humiliation of saying that I am a sinner that's so far gone that it wouldn't matter how many good things I do, I can never get that right, and I need a saviour. I need the saviour.
But it's not impossible, as your own experience
No, absolutely,
testifies.
that's right. But it's a good thing to keep in mind that we are biased against God.
So, Bill, is religion for fools?
If we're just going on our own opinions, I think Christianity was the best, so I chose that one, then yeah, it's for fools. But if God's come down in person and told us, then no, it's not foolish. It's not, and it's definitely not foolish. What I think is foolish is to think that Jesus was a liar or that Jesus was a lunatic.
Let me leave you with the Bible's answer to the big question, is religion for fools? From 1 John 4:1. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. I look forward to you joining us next time for bigger questions. Please thank our guest today, Bill Medley.
Thank you.